Hello friends, this is Angela from Art of Creation Homestead. Welcome to our kitchen again, and welcome back to another episode of what to do with all these eggs. I know you see a big mound of flour out on a countertop, and you're probably thinking, she's poured flour out on her countertop, she's lost it. She's finally went and done it, she's finally lost it. I haven't, I promise. Today, what I'm going to be teaching you how to do is I'm going to be teaching you how to make homemade pasta. Particularly homemade fettuccine. And there's going to be a bonus recipe in here for a really awesome homemade Alfredo sauce to go with it. A lot of times I will do this in a food processor. It will just take a few minutes in a food processor. But I know not everyone has a food processor. So I'm going to go the old-fashioned route, and I'm going to do it with these things and a fork. So what we have here, we have 3 cups of all-purpose flour, and we have an extra cup sitting over to the side because you need lots of flour when you're making pasta to keep your work surface floured well. So you will want that later. And to this mound of flour, we are going to add 1 teaspoon of salt. You just want to sprinkle it around on your mound. And just kind of use your fork and kind of work it in. And now, we're going to make a well in the middle of your mound. Take your hands and work out a well. But you have to make sure your walls to your well are very strong. It's kind of like you're building a sandcastle. If you've ever built a sandcastle before, it's almost like building a sandcastle. It's kind of fun actually. So now you have your well in the middle of your flour, and you have your walls. Now to the well, you are going to add the contents of this cup, which is 3 large eggs and 2 egg yolks. We're going to dump those right into the middle of the well. We're also going to add the contents of this cup, which is 1 tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil and 1 tablespoon of water. And those few ingredients is all it takes to make pasta. Now you want to break your yolks with your fork, and you want to slowly just start beating them in the middle of there. Just slowly start whipping them with your fork, just like you were making scrambled eggs. But you don't want to breach your walls. You want to, now you want to take, now that your eggs are all beat up, you want to take your fork, go around your walls, and bring in some flour. Now you want to work in that flour that you just put in on top of your eggs. You want to slowly start working in that flour. And as you work, you're going to start bringing in more and more flour from your walls. And you want to use your hand to keep your walls built up. You don't want to breach those walls, because then your eggs will run everywhere. And so you don't want to do that, because then you will have a mess. So you want to keep building up make your hand in a cup form and keep building up your walls. Keep your walls solid and keep working in those eggs. Keep working that flour into those eggs. And you will notice it getting thicker and thicker. See, you can probably see it. It's continually getting thicker. And you want to keep adding more flour. At one point, when it starts to get thicker and starts to make a dough, it's okay if you breach your walls. But right now, it would just run everywhere. Now, you want to keep moving. Keep this moving. And see, it's starting to get thick enough now that I'm having to do more of a stirring motion than a whipping motion. And see, your walls will want to start breaching now, because you're losing a lot of your flour. So you have to keep your walls there. But you're almost to the point already that you won't have to worry about breaching your walls. Because see, it's not running everywhere now. And see, you're starting to get a little bit of a dough. It's starting to get stiff now. Now we want to pull in some more flour. And it's okay at this point, because as you can see, you're starting to make a dough. This quickly, you're already starting to make your pasta dough. So now, you don't have to worry about your walls being breached as much, because you're already starting to get a dough and it's not going to run everywhere. And see, it's getting stiffer and stiffer. You're going to feel it under your fork, getting stiffer and stiffer. Now, you're getting a stiffer and stiffer dough now. And once it starts getting really stiff, then we will abandon the fork and go with the tools that God gave us. Now, we're to that point. So if you don't like your hands to get messy, I'm sorry, they're going to get messy. So you want to put your hands in the flour. You want to start working the dough, because you've got a soft dough now. It's not a firm dough. You've got a soft dough. So you want to start working in your flour. Just up and over, working your flour. And it will take as much as it needs. It may leave some behind. Don't worry about it taking every bit of flour. It may not take every bit of flour. It will take what it needs. Now you can take your fork, scrape your dough off of your countertop, or whatever you're using as a work surface. Scrape it off and just keep working. Now you're going to start noticing me kind of kneading it like you would bread. Like you would knead bread dough. And see, you're starting to get a shaggy dough. Okay, how we knead, you put your hand on it. You pull up and fold it over your hand and push away from you. And then you turn it. Do the same thing again. Fold over and push away from you. Turn, fold over, push away from you. Turn, fold over, push away from you. And you will want to knead this at this point. Like I said, it may or may not take all of this flour. If it doesn't, then it's took what it needs, and you need to leave it be. Don't try to force it to take all the flour. Just make sure you pull in all those shaggy dough bits though, because you want those. Okay, now at this point, you've got a nice stiff dough going on. So you're going to start wanting to knead this more and more. And at this point, you're going to want to knead this dough until when you push on it, that it springs back on you. That indentation that you made in it will pop right back out. Because at that point, the gluten is very tight and it's right where you want it. So at this point, as you can see, we've got a nice dough. So you want to push this flour, this excess flour, you want to push it to the side. And you want to start kneading it without that flour. And if it needs more flour, if it starts to get sticky, then you bring more flour over and add to it. But right now it's not getting sticky because it's taken the amount of flour that it needs. And it's going to feel like it's not going to come together. It's going to feel like it's way too shaggy and it's not going to come together, and it's way too stiff. It's going to come together. It's already starting to come together. It's already starting to lose that matte look that it had from the flour. It's already starting to turn that beautiful yellow color. And see, you will have that beautiful color right there. If you have your own fresh eggs, you will have that beautiful color. If you use store-bought eggs, which I have many times before we got our own chickens, it won't be this vibrant in color. It will be a little more muted, but it will still taste good. It just won't be as rich. And as you can see, now it's actually starting to form a dough ball now. And that's what you're wanting it to do. So now I'm working it into a dough ball, and now we're gonna keep kneading it. And it's gonna get stiffer and stiffer. I'm not gonna lie to you. As you get close to the 10-minute mark, well, it could take 5 to 10 minutes. It depends on how hard you knead it, because you want to knead it pretty hard. You don't want to be real gentle with it. You want to knead it really hard, because the harder you knead it, the sooner you're going to be done kneading it. It could take anywhere from 7 to 10 minutes. So we'll be back and I'll show you what it looks like when we've got a nice dough ball and it's springing back to where we need it. Okay, if it starts, as you can see, mine is turning into a ball. If it starts to look like it's not going to turn into a ball, if it's staying a little too shaggy, no matter how much you knead it, add just about a half a teaspoon of water and it will come together for you really nicely into a ball. It's okay if it feels a little bit tacky, a little bit sticky, that's just fine, because that will work out as you need it. And we're almost there. We're almost to that perfect stage. And then I will see if I can get a good shot so you can see really well of how it will spring back. Because when you push on it and leave an indentation, it will spring back. When the gluten is worked enough and it's ready, it will spring back on you. And that's when you know your dough is perfect, because you want your gluten really worked. When you're making pasta, the stronger your gluten is, the better. But at the same time, you don't want to use bread flour. Bread flour is too much gluten. Then you would end up with rubber bands. Instead of fettuccine, you would have rubber bands and Alfredo sauce. I don't think that sounds good. So you want to use regular all-purpose flour. I prefer unbleached. Bleached with pasta, you have a tendency to get a little off-putting flavor. So I would highly recommend using non-bleached flour for this. What I'm using is King Arthur all-purpose flour, but that's honestly my flour of choice anyways. So now you've got a nice dough ball here. Now I'm going to check it and see if it works. See if it's still leaving a little bit of an indentation. So it isn't quite worked enough yet, because it's still leaving a little bit of an indentation. At this point, it's getting stiffer and stiffer as you knead it. You feel it resisting your kneading, and that's how you know the gluten is becoming right. So now let's try it again. Let's pull it together at the bottom into a nice ball. Pull it together real good. Roll it around on your surface to make it into a nice ball. Pull it tight. Stretch it and pull it tight. Make it into a nice ball of dough. And now we'll check it. See, now let's see if I can get a good shot of this. See, when you push on it, see it leaves an indentation, but watch it rising back out. See, I'll do it again. Push on it and see, it's rising right back out. See, that's how you know your dough is ready to go. So now you've done all that working of that gluten to form that beautiful gluten that will make such a wonderful pasta. Now you have to let that gluten rest. Otherwise, it will be nearly impossible to roll it out. As tight as the gluten is right now, it will be nearly impossible to roll it out. So what you want to do at this point, you want to let it rest. You want a piece of plastic wrap. Your dough shouldn't be really sticky at this point, but if it is a little sticky, you can put just a little bit of olive oil on it if your dough is real sticky. But if you've kneaded it the right amount, it should not be sticky at all. So now you want to put your ball of dough in your plastic wrap and you want to wrap it up real nice and tight. Now it's really tight in here. Now we will set it aside to rest for a half an hour. Then I'll show you what we do next. Okay, it's been a half an hour. Your gluten should be nice and relaxed now. And see, you can push on it and see, you can tell it's gotten much softer.
It's orange, very, very orange.
Yes, it's gotten much softer now because it's relaxed a lot. You want to flatten it out into a disc so that you can divide it into equal portions, because you want to work in portions. That way the rest of your dough you can keep wrapped up so it doesn't dry out, because it will dry out easily. So you want to divide it into 4 sections. And I want to show you what this dough looks like inside when I pull it apart. Look at that.
It's like Play-Doh.
It does look kind of like Play-Doh. And it feels almost like you're playing in Play-Doh. It really does. It feels almost like you're playing with Play-Doh. I actually find it to be very fun and very relaxing to make pasta. So now we're going to wrap this back up. Be sure and wrap that back up because it will dry out easily.
Yeah.
And you don't want it to dry out, so wrap it back up nice and tight. And what we have here, this is a pasta roller. It's a hand crank. You can buy them with a motor. You can buy them as an attachment for your KitchenAid. This is an Italian import, and it's hand cranked. I prefer hand crank. I feel like I can control it better. And see, it clamps onto your countertop or your table with this little wrench. So you turn this little nut down here and it tightens it down to your table. And this particular one comes with this cutting blade as well, where you can make linguine or you can make fettuccine. We're making fettuccine today for Fettuccine Alfredo, which Jason's probably pretty excited about.
I'll have to suck it up and eat it, I guess.
But I know not everyone has one of these. So I'm going to show you that you can still make pasta if you don't have one of these. But I'm going to show you how to roll this out by hand and how to cut it by hand with one section of it. The rest of them I'm going to do with my machine, and I'll show you how to do it that way as well. So you want to flatten it out the best you can. And then we're going to go old-fashioned on this.
Old school, little old-time grandma over
with a good old rolling pin.
What kind of technique do you like to use for something like that?
Put it in the middle. Roll this way. Roll this way. Pick it up, turn it, put it in the middle. Roll this way. Roll this way. You don't really want to roll off the edge, because if you do, you tend to flatten out the edge too much. So you just keep doing that, and we'll be back and I'll show you how thin you want it, because you want this pretty thin. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, it takes a little bit to roll it by hand. It takes a little
It's
bit.
an effort, ain't it?
So you want to cut off the ends because they're a little too jagged and you're not going to get pretty noodles that way. And from here, you want to roll it up because you've got a nice sheet of pasta now. I'm going to throw some flour on this, and like I said, you want to make sure you have that flour nearby because you need a lot of flour when you're doing this part.
Keep it from sticking?
Yeah.
Okay.
You roll it up. And then you cut. You cut in pieces about that big. And there you go. There's your noodle. There you go. There's your noodle.
That's interesting.
And you just keep cutting along. You can cut them as thin or as thick as you want.
That's fascinating, actually, because you would, like in my mind, I would think you just leave that sheet down and just cut long strips. But this makes a lot more sense. It's fascinating.
And now you've got all your pasta.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Now I will show you how to do it with a machine, and you're going to get much thinner pasta. You're going to get much thinner noodles, much more consistent cuts, and it's going to be much quicker. But as you can see,
this is still good though.
This is still great. You can make really great pasta without a machine.
Yeah.
See, look at that pretty spiral.
That's something.
And see, you just unroll it. Now we're going to show you the modern way. Okay, now you want to take another quadrant of your dough and you want to flatten it out long because you're going to be running it through here, running it through these rollers. So you want to flatten it out long. Okay, now over here, we'll move our cutter. You will see numbers on a dial. You want to start out at 0.
I see that.
And you want to put it up like this. You want to start rolling. And it's going to get thinner and thinner every time. 0 is where you always start. Now you fold over with this. You run it through again. You want to run through each number twice. Fold and fold over between the two times. Now we move it to 1.
It's hard to see with the light on it.
Now you run it back through, and you're going to see it getting longer and longer. Okay, now you fold it over.
Easier than a rolling pin?
Much easier. Much easier. Much easier than a rolling pin.
Looks easier.
Okay, now go to 2. You want to feed it back in. And then you fold it over again. And this time you can run it through this way if you want to. You can run it through either way, because it's not going to matter, because it looks like it's got a crease there. It's all going to smooth out. As you keep making it smaller, it's all going to smooth out. So now we're going to take it to 3. So now I ran it through on 3 once. Now once you get to 3, it starts moving a lot faster then, because you can start skipping numbers then. So this is the second time running it through on 3. Okay, now see if you can see it right here. See, there's a big space between 2 and 3, and a big space between 1 and 2. Now when you start getting to 3, 4, and 5, it's a very small space, because you can start skipping those. So instead of going to 4, we're going to go to 5. And you'll notice it getting tougher to crank, because watch it getting thinner as it goes. You've got a much larger sheet of dough. Now, you want to fold it over again, run it through again, and you're getting increasingly thinner as you do this. Now, for fettuccine, you don't want to make it horribly thin, because then it won't cut good, and you will have paper thin. So you don't. I always take it to a 6 for fettuccine. Now, it can go all the way to a 9. A 9 hits completely paper thin. And you're gonna watch it get really nice and thin and really beautiful at this point.
What's the point in folding it over?
It creates layers, which makes for a better texture on your pasta.
Okay.
You may hear that pop sometimes. It's popping a bubble that gets in it. Okay, now we're gonna fold it over, and we're gonna run it through one last time on 6. And you know it's ready when you can hold it up and you can see your fingers through it. I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah, you can see. You can see that.
See, you can see your fingers through it.
Yep.
Now you have this beautiful sheet of pasta.
That's nice.
Now, we're gonna flour it up real good, because you don't want it to stick. So you're gonna flour it up really good. Flip it over, flour the other side really good. And this would make, these noodles will be way too long. So you wanna cut it in half. And you've got 2 pasta sheets there. Okay, here we have a stack of beautiful pasta sheets. And they are absolutely beautiful.
It's interesting how you have that and you just flip it through it like it's a book.
So now we're going to use our cutter. You will see that there are 2 grooves here on each side, and there are corresponding grooves on your cutter. Okay, you just slide the grooves in together. There you go. Now you'll see where I put the handle in here for the roller. You'll see where I put the handle in there. You have 2 more of those holes here. This one is for the linguine disc cutting blades. This hole is for the fettuccine. So you want to put it in the hole for the fettuccine. If that's what you're making, that is. And now we're going to take our pasta sheet.
It's going to be magical, folks.
And we are going to start rolling. And it will start coming out on the bottom. If you can show that, Chase.
Okay. Maybe. Yep.
And it will be cut into fettuccine.
That is awesome.
Let's see. Now you have all these beautiful fettuccine noodles.
That's
See?
pretty cool.
Now you have all that beautiful fettuccine.
That's awesome.
And you want to dust it with a lot of flour, because you don't want your noodles to stick together. So you want to dust it with a lot of flour, and you can just pile it over here to the side, because it's okay. You don't want your dough to dry before you roll it, because if it dries then, it's going to crack when you try to roll it. But actually, you want your noodles to dry before you cook them. You want them to start to dry a little bit.
Because in reality, you actually can do this, dry the noodles, and then store the noodles dried, correct?
Yes. Or even from this point right here,
Yeah.
you can freeze them.
You can freeze them, that's a good point too. Yeah.
So, I'll show you that magic one more time, and then I'll
cool.
keep cutting. Isn't that gorgeous?
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Hey man, why are you cutting my hair, man? Sorry. Sorry.
Look at that. Now you see why you need, if you want to make your own pasta, it makes it so much quicker and so much easier to have one of these machines. It's just, it's the way to go.
It is. If you want to do this, it's worth buying the machine.
And they have come down significantly in price
Yeah, we've had this
over the past few years.
We've had this one for 10 years, haven't we?
Yes. And they were more expensive then. They have come down significantly in price since then. So I'm going to keep cutting and I'll show you what we do next. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to make that little bonus recipe of the most awesome Alfredo sauce you've ever tasted. And it's just a very few ingredients and it's wonderful. In this pot, I'm using a deep saute. You want a high-sided skillet, basically. We have 1 pint of heavy cream in here. And we have the temperature on medium-low to bring it up to just where it starts to warm. You don't want to turn it any higher than medium-low because cream can curdle if it gets too hot. So you want to slowly bring it up to temperature, which will take probably about 10-15 minutes, and then I'll show you what we do next. Okay, your cream is nice and warm now, and we're going to add an entire stick of salted butter. You can use unsalted if you would like, but you have to add a little more salt to your sauce. So I just cut it into pieces, and you want it to slowly melt in to your cream, and you want to keep stirring at this point. But while you are doing this, I have started my pasta water over here. I started it before I started cutting my pasta. After I had all the sheets rolled and before I'd started cutting it, I started the pasta water. And it's starting to come up to a little bit of a bubble now, because you want to have your sauce pretty well on its way to being done before you drop your pasta in your water, because the hand rolled and hand cut pasta will take about 4 to 5 minutes. The ones that I did with the machine will only take 3 minutes. That's all it takes. So you want to have everything ready to go when you drop your pasta, because literally it's not going to take no time. So as you can see, your butter is nearly melted. Yes, this is not low-calorie food. We do not eat fettuccine Alfredo every day. This is a treat. And from here, see, your butter is completely melted. So now we're going to add our Parmesan cheese. We're going to turn our heat down to low. And we are going to add a cup of Parmesan cheese. And you want to work that in real good. And at this point, after you work in your Parmesan cheese, you want to taste it for salt and pepper. And you will want to season it with a little bit of salt. You won't need a ton because Parmesan cheese is so salty. You won't need a ton of salt, but you will need a little bit of pepper. Now you don't want to kill it with pepper because this is a very subtle flavor. So you don't want to kill it with pepper. Okay, we need a little salt. We need just a little bit of salt, not a ton. Just a couple of good pinches. And a few grinds of fresh cracked pepper. And you want to stir that in. Now, you've got it on low, so you want to give it an occasional stir every now and again. But now your water is ready for your pasta. So you want to dump in a generous amount of salt. I dumped in a good amount of salt because you want it nice and salty. Now we're going to throw in our pasta. Now this is going to go in first because this is what I rolled and cut by hand, so it's a little thicker. So we're going to give that a minute or two longer before we add that.
Now look, if it might use your crap about some thick cut pasta, just tell them it's rustic, farm style, correct?
Okay, this beautiful pasta is ready now. Isn't that gorgeous?
It's awesome.
Did you ever think you could make pasta yourself that looked like that? I promise you, it's so much better than that stuff in the store.
Oh yeah.
So much better. And it cooks so quick, and it's just out of ingredients you have in the house all the time.
If you got a lot of eggs.
Yep. Now, we're gonna dump it. Okay, now we're gonna give our Alfredo sauce a good turn. Now, it may seem loose. Once you add that starchy pasta, it's gonna tighten up. That's why you never want to serve, you know, like people serve spaghetti and they put the sauce on top. You don't want to do that with Alfredo. I know some restaurants do that. You really don't want to do that. You want to toss your pasta in with your sauce because that's what's going to thicken it up. So now we're going to toss this beautiful homemade pasta into our beautiful Alfredo sauce. Your best tool to do this with is a pair of tongs. And you just want to keep it moving. And you'll watch your sauce start to thicken as your pasta sits in it and absorbs it. You're going to watch it start to thicken. See? You're watching it starting to coat the noodles.
Let's go. Let's see, the Alfredo, for those of you, because you may not be able to see it as well, what I'm looking at here, the Alfredo is not a big, thick sauce. That would be a gravy. Correct? Is that, am I right, Ange?
Yes.
That would be gravy. This is a nice, mellow sauce, and it's really come together nicely on this homemade pasta. Okay.
And you can see the more I stir it, and the more that starchy pasta, it's getting thicker and thicker. And it's coating the pasta beautifully.
Yeah, that's really nice now. And see, if you're like me, I was concerned because I'm not the cook. I thought she just had some milk sitting here on the stove with some butter in it. I did not realize it was going to create this. This is outstanding. Totally different now.
It gets very luxurious.
Yeah, that's nice.
And the longer you turn it in here, keep your heat on medium low. Yep. Keep your heat on about medium low and just keep turning it. And it will thicken. Did I splatter you?
No, I don't think so. I think we're good.
And it will just keep thickening.
Man, that's nice.
See? Now you're starting to get nice and thick around your pasta. And the more you turn it in there, the better it's going to get.
I really don't even want to bite into this because what Angela did here is just amazing. I always knew she was a good cook and she was smart and knew what she was doing, but watching her do this for the first time ever in our 18 years of marriage almost now really proved to me how flipping brilliant she is. She's so smart. She knows exactly what she's doing, and I'm excited to eat this now. Wow. This is why I don't go out to eat nowhere. We don't ever go out to eat. You know why? Because she's better in the restaurants. Oh my gosh. Hang on, I'm getting a box. Excuse me for a minute. Wow.
The sauce turns so velvety.
You gonna just watch me eat this? Because I ain't gonna talk no more. I'm done. Alright, no, I'm kidding. But seriously, y'all, take the time to make this. Take the time to make the pasta, and the sauce is the best Alfredo sauce you'll ever comprehend. It's so simple, but it's delicious. Okay. Follow the steps. Angela Kay is brilliant. She knows what she's doing. Okay. And enjoy this meal. Hey, look, we appreciate you guys watching. Again, subscribe for more of these brilliant recipes, talking about how to use the food that you grow and you raise yourself, and live a more independent lifestyle, to be honest with you. Okay. But subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications so that you see when we actually put videos up. It may not come in your feed if you don't click the bell for notifications. But give us a thumbs up if you like the video. Comment, let us know what you think. We appreciate you guys watching. My name is Jason. The brilliant person there holding the camera at this point is Angela Kay. We love you guys. God bless you and goodbye.